Yeah, I'll be sitting like this probably. Uh, but yeah, you're gonna see it. It's the look of professionalism, Ben.
Yep. You even have a pop
And
filter on it and everything.
yeah, this is so, and we're gonna talk about it. I think we're gonna have a conversation about this. What's going on here? It might even my audio might even sound better. I mean, I don't want to get crazy, but all right. Three, two, one. Ben Lawrence.
Puggoody!
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
I'm good. How are
I called
you?
I called you buddy,
You called me
Ben.
buddy.
I think that's the first time I've ever called you buddy. That's a
like in a
slightly
like in a friendly
slightly
way.
demeaning way to mention. Oh, you know what? I didn't go on Twitter and note that we were doing this today.
I haven't even
Normally
been
I
on
retweet your
Twitter.
thing, but
Yeah.
you didn't do it either.
Well, I mean, I tweeted at you, so
Uh,
you have there's a
yeah.
new notification for you from me about today's show.
So this is check this out, right?
Yeah.
This setup here with this professional, as they say in French, professional.
Yeah, I'd think it'd be professional if you didn't have insulation blankets just, around PVC pipe willy-nilly behind you.
Yeah, that's true. But we can only do so much at one time.
Yeah,
So
baby
here's the
steps,
story.
man.
I don't think she
Yeah.
minds me mentioning this. Jennifer Pratt, my wife, who you may be familiar with,
Jennifer Pratt, Jennifer Fact Checker.
she no longer checks facts as much. That's because she's been kind of busy, doing other stuff and not listening to our podcast. But one of the things that she's been doing is auditioning for reading audiobooks. And can I just say, she's reading some audiobooks. This
So, like,
is
she's
what.
got. Did she get like a gig doing that, or
So
you
I don't
say
want
she's reading
to. I don't want to
audiobooks
say anything.
in that she's
Who
auditioning?
who knows for sure? Anyone could say anything at this point. You know how when somebody has a baby, and they don't tell you for like the first week or so, or
I
whatever.
think it's
Like
longer
they
than that.
keep it hush,
They
hush, hush for a while.
for a
Yeah.
long while
So
because
so who knows? Who
because
knows what's
reasons.
happening with Jennifer and that audiobook
So what you're
stuff?
telling me is Jennifer is in her first trimester of audiobook reading.
That's a great way to put it, and I'm sure she'll be very happy that that's how we decided to mention it.
All
But yeah,
right.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out, how it goes.
Well, be sure if she gets any, if she does do that, be sure to promote those books so we can all listen to her read books.
Absolutely, I will. And hey,
I,
Ben, you notice how there's very little delay between you and me talking?
uh, is
Okay,
there?
see now that long pause, that was you thinking.
Exactly.
That wasn't a yeah,
You
yeah,
want
yeah.
you want to do the clap test to see
Oh yeah,
to see
sure.
how big. I think you want to try to clap at the same time, or do I clap
Yeah,
after I
yeah,
see
yeah.
you clap? Okay,
Three, two,
2,
one.
1.
Okay. So for me, that was right at the same time. This
Oh,
time.
it was a beat after
Mine was a beat
mine.
after yours.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so last time yours was a beat after mine. So it looks like whoever initiates is always
whoever smelt it
yeah,
dealt it. Is that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
Oh my gosh.
the
So
clap test?
speaking about which, so is Mr. McCandless on by any chance?
I don't think so.
Okay, because he had asked me. Well, I had just gotten a question mark from him. I believe that he tried to go on, and we weren't recording.
Oh,
I told him that you were running late, but I didn't.
yeah.
I never texted him back to say that you were back on. So, sorry, Stephen. I would text you, but I'm using my phone right now to talk to Ben.
I can
So that's why.
text
if you
him
can,
via
yeah, you
the
should
show.
let him
number.
know.
Oh, I haven't put that up yet. I gotta put the phone number and the email address on screen. There we go.
Oh, all right, all right.
So
There we
Paul
go. Do we have
wanted
anyone
me
watching,
to-
or are we at 0 viewers?
Actually, he's texting me right now. He
Aha.
says what? He says what? I'm watching. All right.
Well, there we go. Hey,
Well,
Steven.
I
So,
didn't
one of the things I wanted to talk about,
didn't see him on the stream.
Steven sent me uh, a link to AI Day
Yeah.
Tesla was having. I'm sure he
Is
might
that
have sent it to you as well,
I
or not.
I don't think so, but is this where the human in a robot suit was dancing on stage?
Yeah, which I gotta say really bummed me out because I was like, finally we're there, but then it was just a person because they did a good job looking like a robot when they first walked out, and then at some point in time during the dancing, I was like, all right, but I do want to say that I'm a little bit creeped out that there is a robot that can look so human that a person might be able to impersonate that. I never thought until that moment how spooky it is to the idea not a robot going crazy, but a person dressing like a robot and then getting to your house that way because you trust it because it's a robot.
I think
But
we're
then it's
gonna
a
have
person.
to have that reverse CAPTCHA test where you're gonna have to click a box to prove you're not a human.
Exactly that. Yeah. There we go. Get those people out of here, is what I say. Yeah, there was a guy on Twitter. I don't not Twitter, TikTok. Don't remember his name, but his concern, and I think this is a very very good concern, is that people are going to be so abusive towards like the way that we're already abusive towards customer service people,
Oh, I
even
thought you
more
meant.
so with robots. Like
Oh,
they're going to be mad at them and attack them and all that stuff.
like you're
So the
somebody
question
on the
is,
internet.
how much defensive capability are we going to give robots? Because if you're a company and you have this autonomous piece of machinery that costs however much, you're going to want it to be able to protect itself. How much? Being able to dodge, that's a given, right? But should it be able to block if someone is
There
swinging something at it?
was a story about a company that was like putting an autonomous rover and they wanted it to drive from like the East Coast to the West Coast. And when it got to Philadelphia, it got trashed. Like people
Okay,
saw it and destroyed it.
so this was actually not a rover. It was a hitchhiking robot, and the
Something.
hitchhiking robot, you actually it didn't really have any autonomy. You picked it up and you took it with you, and then it would record and show things. And yeah, it got trashed in Philly. Still
My
got trashed in
incorrect
Philly.
details aside, the point is the same. People like,
Yeah,
are companies going to institute Asimov's rules for robots into their, like Boston Dynamics? They kick the crap out of their robot dogs all the time, right? Are they going to
yeah.
build in a safety feature so the robot cannot fight back?
I think they will put in a safety feature so the robot can't fight back, but they'll also institute fines that if it'll have cameras on it, and if you damage their property, they'll fine you for the robot. That's what I think.
I think there's a market for this too. I think there's a market for robots that are built for you to beat up.
All right, so let's look at it this way, right? People who talk about the insurance that they buy for car rentals, right? They buy the car rental insurance and then they just, drive the crap out of the car and like hit it and things. And
Right.
they're like, what does it matter? I paid for the insurance. Maybe you will have robot insurance that covers like a homeowner's insurance covers any damage that happens to robots when it gets to your house, for example. Because that's the thing, is that these robots, in my opinion, having your own robot, probably not. But having a robot deliver your food, absolutely something
Yeah.
that would happen. Yeah. And do you let it into your room or into your house, or do you just leave it on the front porch? Probably on the front porch.
I think people are terrible, and I think that the rate with which people destroy robots is going to be larger than robot manufacturers will expect.
I think that's quite possible. And we're talking about it now. So robot manufacturers, take a tip from GudeLaurance. Be careful. Also, Stephen McCandless. Wait, Ben, I think that Stephen is like the silent podcast participant. We talk about him. He is our audience surrogate. He is our audience.
Yeah.
So I will say, I watched a lot of it live, and I did not watch the recorded version of it. I just watched clips at that point. I could not. I understand it's all interesting, but it did not hold my attention as much as it might have.
I didn't watch any of it. I've only seen clips of the robot dance. Because when it came out and Twitter just exploded with like jokes about, Elon Musk putting a dude in a robot outfit and kind of making fun of him for that. So
the autonomous car stuff was really interesting. It's really cool. I watched a good 20, 30 minutes of it probably.
I'm all in on autonomous cars, even though I love driving. But I think that's how we get to personal airplanes, to flying cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
It has to be all autonomous.
And I still think the final step, and they're going to get there eventually, probably, is that no one individual has their driving car, and all the driving cars are a unit rather than each individual car making its decisions. There's a brain that's outside of all the cars, and it's figuring out how to move the cars.
It's like air traffic control. When you go from one city to the other, you leave this city's brain and you enter this city's brain.
Exactly. That's right.
This just in from our one listener. Apparently, AI Day was a recruiting pitch and not for the general audience, which I didn't know.
Oh, well, that makes sense. It does make sense. That's why they said, if you're interested in this stuff, we'd love for you to join us. Makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, I didn't see that part. I just saw the dancing robot and thought it was pretty silly.
I honestly don't know if, number one, I don't see myself as having the skills that Tesla wants. That's number one. And number two, I don't think my home life would really work. And if I have to choose between Elon Musk and Jennifer, I'd choose Jennifer every single time. So
glad you said the right name.
Because she does not like him, has problems with him.
A lot of people got problems with him.
Yeah.
I was watching TV late one night. I have 2 episodes left of The Good Place. I almost called it Good Place. I have 2 episodes left. I probably won't be able to get to them tonight, but maybe tomorrow. But I was my late night. I don't want to think about TV, but I'm not ready to go to bed yet. TV are these car shows on Netflix. One is called, I think it's called Car Masters Rust to Riches, and it's about this garage, probably in California, called Gotham Garage, and they have a mechanic there who they call Caveman. And Paul, I think you wouldn't disagree with me if you saw this show that you bear a striking resemblance to the character on this show they call Caveman.
Ben, I have been meaning to tell you this for some time because I know that you're interested in cars. I, for the longest time, have been on this Netflix show called... Oh, shit. Oh, whoops. Sorry, everybody.
Hey, you swore on the stream.
I forgot the name of the show. I was going to say the name of the show and be like, I'm not Caveman, of course. Caveman is my character. And I don't know anything about cars. They feed me everything that I say on that show.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens to every person on these car shows. But there's an actual crew behind that's not on camera that actually does the work.
No, but I am not doing that. I honestly think that if people would pay me to do that, I would do it. Probably. I like the work that I'm doing now. I find it fulfilling. Finally, here's the thing that I like about people think that I like work where I can prove that I'm smart by knowing things. It's not true. I like doing work where I can prove that I'm smart by not knowing things and then knowing them. The process of figuring something out, it helps if no one else knows about it too. If I'm the one that finally figures out what's going on, that's what I really
You figure
like.
something out, and you're like, first.
Yeah, exactly. If everybody else knows and I'm catching up, I hate it. That's not for me. That's not the job that I want. But if nobody knows anything, this is what I keep telling them. Give me the job that no one understands, and then I'll do fine. If you give me a job that someone else can do better, you're going to be disappointed. And so far, it's worked out pretty well for me.
That was kind of what I hated about being a temp, which was somebody spent just as much or more time setting up a task that they could have just as easily accomplished in less time.
And they know this as well, right? People say, I need more time. They say, okay, we'll hire you a temp. Doesn't help.
Yeah.
In my professional life, onboarding someone to help you actually doubles the time that it normally takes you to do stuff. But after that person is onboarded, then you're actually saving time again.
Yeah.
You just have to build that time in, that onboarding time is what I've
people got to get up to speed. I mean, that's, they say in job applications or job postings, like you need to have so many, hours or years of this coding language, so many hours or years of this skill, these qualifications. And that scares off a lot of job prospects because they're like, well, how am I supposed to get all of that? I'm just entering the job market. But I actually read where an HR, somebody who claimed to be an HR professional on the internet, but what they said seemed pretty reasonable. That those are just like the wishes of the people who are doing the hiring. Those aren't the roadblocks. Those are just like, if you don't have this qualification, but you show a willingness to get this qualification, you're not necessarily eliminated from the job pool.
Yeah, I can say I have in the past been on hiring teams for people. And lots of times, yeah, that's exactly right. You're hoping that you get the person that fits the actual things that you want, but you consider every application that actually makes it through the system and look at it and go, can I work with this person? I have been lucky in that the people that get hired, I'll make bets, right? I'll gamble a little bit and be like, okay, this person doesn't have this skill, but just because, what I do is I ask questions that let me know whether or not they have the mindset where they will be able to learn this skill that I need them to have. Yeah. And if they do, lots of times I will put them ahead of people who do have that skill, but are deficient in other areas. Especially if the person that I'm working with doesn't. Okay, I'll tell you just in general, and I think you'll agree with me on this. If you get the impression that the person that you're hiring will not do anything until you tell them to do it, and will sit around and wait. And when you say, why isn't this done? They're like, well, I had a problem with this and I wasn't sure how to continue, so I just stopped working.
Yeah.
If you get that impression, I will hire someone who's like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing to learn 9 times out of 10. Because the motivation to actually do things is so important.
Welcome to the GudeLaurance podcast on how to get a job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on, right? Who tunes into this for that? Let me talk to you about Public Freakout again, Ben. I've started watching it again on Reddit.
Oh, God.
I saw the most boring clip on Public Freakout that I've ever seen.
The most boring Public Freakout.
Yep. But I because it wasn't really a public. Okay, this is the problem. And you'll go with me on this. I think Reddit channels. people gotta learn what the Reddit channels actually like. If you have something called public freakout, and I love this so much, but you can have in public freakout, there's a clip where a guy has his hand on a board and he's holding a nail. So the point of the nail is in his palm and his fingers are around the base of the nail and he's got a hammer and he just hammers the nail into his own palm and screams. And someone will put, "This is not appropriate for this sub. That was not public. He's downstairs in his basement." And I love those people.
That's why subreddits have rules.
They have their eyes on the prize. Don't put the wrong thing in the wrong subreddit. In this case, I don't think that there was an actual freakout. There were people who were arguing, but there wasn't an actual freakout. I shared this with Steven, actually. It was people in a county in Washington, your state, who were holding a meeting for the county, and one of the members wasn't wearing a mask. And other people were saying that the meeting would not be considered legal because he wasn't wearing a mask. And he was like, "Well, I'm doing this as a protest. This is civil disobedience, and I'm still doing it. And so I think it will be legal." And this lawyer and the concessions that these folks were making, because, this is a public meeting, they want to get reelected, all that kind of stuff. They're like, "Look, I hate these masks too. I'm right with you, buddy. But, the law says that we have to wear these masks. And so I'm wearing it because," and the other guy's like, "Well, you should take it off and join me in our, fight against tyranny," and all this kind of stuff. But the thing that was great, and the reason I sent it to Steven, I don't know, I have no idea if you watched it or not. I mean, like I said, it is boring, but the guy who was the lawyer, who was there going, "I looked at all the ordinances and you can do, we've got plenty of ways that we can fight this and we can do all this. If we hold this meeting and we are not wearing masks, this meeting is not legal." And the thing that he said that I thought was really interesting is, if anyone's here for land use and they're trying to get a permit and they get a permit when this is an illegal meeting with a guy who's not wearing a mask, that permit will not be valid. And I'm trying to keep it so that when we get sued by the state, that we aren't found liable. And so we have to have this. And there's a guy who's, and this is I guess the public freakout point. There's a guy in the back who's like, "You suck. I can't believe that we're doing it." And he would go, "I'm talking right now." And the guy's like, "I'm sorry. I respect everything you say. I just get a little emotional. I apologize. You're saying a lot of really good stuff. Please continue." So he'd start talking again. And the guy would be like, "That's a lot of bull. You don't know what you're talking about. You should all be fired. You're traitors." And the guy would like, "Will you please shut?" And he's like, "I understand completely. Thank you for once again pointing out that I was being disruptive. I apologize. Please continue." Like, it was crazy.
What a pendulum of emotions that is.
One of the guys left and said he would not participate in the illegal meeting. The other thing that I liked a lot is that the sheriff came up. And the sheriff took his mask off, first of all. And he's like, "I'm taking my mask off so that everyone can hear me." And everyone laughed and clapped. And he was like, "So I think the way that we do this, because the public has a right to be heard, I think we have the public come up here and speak first. And then, you can do whatever you want to. Now, they're right that it's not a law, it's a mandate. And technically, if the law enforcement official wants to arrest you for violating the mandate, they can, but I'm the guy in charge. So don't worry, that's not going to happen. Let's just have a nice, orderly thing." don't cross that line because I wouldn't want to arrest you. So let's just go ahead and do it. And then when he leaves, and everyone claps, and then when he leaves, the guy's like, I just want to remind you that having people come up and do this and then doing our official business, the sheriff might have said that, still doesn't make this a legal meeting. This is still an illegal meeting, and everyone boos that guy. It was,
Sheriff knows his audience, man.
Yeah, the sheriff, and that's the thing is that, Ben, if it were you and I, and if we were at Annex, and if we were still doing Spin the Bottle, we would do a whole thing at the beginning of the show, and I saw it in my head. Hi there. So I'm the fire marshal. Just want to let you all know, you got to keep these exits clear, because if there's a fire, you can't sit by the exits. And if the fire marshal sees you do it, someone's going to get in trouble. And then just sit by the fire exit smoking, going, but who knows? I mean, we all like to have a good time, right? And like be the fire marshal throughout the entire show. As the cool guy that wants everyone to like him.
Yeah.
It was nice though, but I do want to bring up the other thing that I saw a lot of, which are the milk crate challenge people. Have you seen the milk crate challenge?
Yeah, I have. I've seen the milk crate challenges.
Okay, but have you seen the people who are arguing that the milk crate challenges are things that the CIA is leaving the milk crates so that people in the inner city hurt themselves?
That's
a way to.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because I wasn't going to mention it, but the 3 milk crate challenges of this compilation that I watched are all people of color.
So the person who had this hypothesis was a person of color, and they were saying it kind of tongue in cheek, because the idea we've now learned about spoilers for the United States of America, but that the idea that crack was introduced into inner city neighborhoods by, I believe it was the CIA, but by a law enforcement agency.
Like during the Nixon administration?
I believe it was during the Reagan administration, I want to say. But either way, to hurt that community, it has come to light, and this is, hey, fact check us because we don't do any research, but if I'm not mistaken, it has come to light that is an actual thing that happened.
Yeah.
So this person is equating the two things, but it was again tongue in cheek, but used to highlight the fact that these sorts of things did happen to inner city neighborhoods and communities.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why the African American community has a very large vaccine hesitancy percentage, because they are very rightfully so very suspicious of the U.S. government.
This is a great thing to talk about, because someone, again, this is on far left TikTok that I saw this. Someone was talking about that, about how Native American tribes, inner city leaders, things like that, they've been working overtime trying to make sure that their folks get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And it's because of this large mistrust. I mean, the last few years, more and more information about the fact that, yes, there were studies done on people in the United States, on U.S. citizens, on prisoners, on, dangerous drugs and diseases left unchecked to see what they would do to people, stuff like that. Many people have known about it, but for the longest time, again, they were thought of as conspiracy theories rather than as truth, and the truth has come out recently. The point that this person was making is why are these vaccines, which do cost money, why are these vaccines free and not, Medicare for all is not something that people are pursuing, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Why is the government being so nice? A little
yes,
too
exactly.
nice.
And the point they were making is that it is easy to think that this is something that they're doing, right? That they're planning on doing to the community. Like, it's not actually a vaccine, it's something that's going to hurt them or whatever. And what this person brought up is that what it actually is, if you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and you should, in their opinion, is that the people in charge, the rich folks who run the country, understand that by vaccinating everyone, they are protecting their own interests. They're protecting their own health. So that's why they're doing it. And the fact that this is backfiring, because you've got all these folks who aren't doing it, you've heard the stories already. This is, as we've mentioned before, sort of a time capsule of what it's like. Right now, we are in 2021. It's August. What is it?
26th?
26th? Yeah.
This will go out on the 29th, I believe.
There are reports that people who are having
30th
various medical issues that normally they would be hospitalized for are being sent home because there aren't any beds, because they're all filled up with COVID patients.
That's a thing.
And the fact is that we were way low, at least in Illinois, we were way low for a while, and now we're back up to where we were last year around this time.
Way low infection rate?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
There's actually, there's a city in Florida that had to limit, or that had to ask its citizens to limit their use of the city water because they ran out of, I think it's liquid oxygen that they use to clean the water. And, Steven, you can talk more about this in the comments. There's the rate at which the U.S. is sending rockets into space has decreased because the availability of liquid oxygen has been drastically reduced because of people who have decided not to get the vaccine who are now hospitalized.
There is at least one 8-year-old boy who has died of COVID now that has been on the news recently. People who are anti-vax are now taking some sort of horse dewormer.
Yeah, that's a thing too. The ivermectin challenge or whatever it's called.
And some people have mentioned that it's not just for horses, it's also for sheep, which I think is funny. And people. there is a people version of it too as well. Apparently.
So here's my I know very little about this discussion of what the ivermectin thing is.
Yeah.
It apparently is an antiviral, and you can get like a human version of this antiviral drug, but like in Mexico, right? But what the people are buying are the supplies at their local veterinary shop, and the standards for medicine for farm animals is a lot less strict than it is for humans. And so it's a very different drug. This is something
that I find incredible about the anti-vaccination movement, and that's that COVID isn't real. And also we're going to take this horse dewormer for the thing that isn't real. It's like, it was like even beforehand, right? This COVID is blown out of proportion. It's no worse than the flu. And also, China did it. Like, how are those two things?
You can't have it both ways.
No worse than the flu, and China did it to kill all of the Americans with their rocket, or whatever. It's you're all over the place, folks. And I know, Ben, that you being my friend for so long are like, well, Paul, yeah, it is strange what crazy things people will say at some point. I understand that me demonstrating or presenting myself as being this rational person.
No, but I mean, there's at least some consistency to your type of craziness, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. So here's my crazy take on all this.
Do it.
I put this on a TikTok, but I was not explicit with it. I was very vague in general because TikTok has this thing, I'm sure you know about it, where the way that they moderate is that if they receive too many complaints, they take your thing down and then you can appeal.
Yeah.
And so they take it down first without even looking at it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to, I tried my best to be vague enough that people didn't know that I was talking about them. Because if they know that I'm talking about them, they might get mad. But here we go. This is the basic thing. Anti-mask, anti-vaccine is at the very last of it, right? A self-destructive act. Yes. You are spreading this. You are giving it to other people and all that. But you are also putting yourself in danger. You are, in fact, opening yourself up for this. And so when people say, well, it's about personal freedoms, I'm not scared, all that kind of stuff. As a kid, I had a hard time figuring out why people did what they did. And the reason I had a hard time figuring it out, and you hear this about, kids with autism and stuff like that. Oh, I don't understand sarcasm. Oh, I don't. People lie all the time. This is what it is. They lie all the time about their motivations for doing things. Oh, well, I did this because blank. They didn't really do it because blank. They're telling themselves they did it because blank, but it's actually another reason.
Right.
The same thing. Oh, I was just being sarcastic. Well, they were being sarcastic, but they also meant it. And so once you get past that, once you realize that everyone is lying to you all the time, two things happen. You get paranoid, which is a problem, but also, too, you start to see what's behind the stuff that the people themselves may not see. So when you look at the anti-vaccination, anti-mask people, even though it's not 100%, and this is anecdotal, a lot of white people, a lot of middle-class, boomer, and late Gen X white people.
I believe the internet calls them Karens.
A lot of Karens. This is exactly right. And what we're basically seeing, and surprisingly enough, or unsurprisingly enough, a lot of people who voted for the last president.
Yeah.
And what did the last president do? What did they do? They dismantled a lot of the infrastructure of the United States. Burnt up a lot of the goodwill between a lot of the steps that were made for race relations in the United States. A lot of breaking down of the system, making the system not work, ruining things, all that sort of,
and just being an all around unpleasant individual.
So that happens, and then also now this self-destructive thing with no vaccines, no masks, taking medicine that makes them poop themselves.
Because somebody on a certain news channel told them to.
Right. All of this has, in my opinion, a common core. And that's that these are all people who are losing their position in their community, in society, decrease in the white population, LGBT rights.
Yeah.
LGBTQA, I think.
LGBTQIA plus, if you want to get everything in there.
Yeah. Do it again. God damn it.
LGBTQIA plus.
LGBTQIA plus. Rights. And also just mainstream acceptability on the rise. All of a sudden, not everyone on a TV program is a white person. Characters that they're used to seeing as white people suddenly aren't. Things that they complain about are now mocked. You know, they're seeing this world that they grew up in, of the people who grew up in this world where white people were on top and they could get away with, you know, anything. They're seeing that go away. They're seeing a leveling in society, and they don't like it, and they're willing to destroy the current system.
If I can't have it, nobody can.
Exactly. And that, I think, is why we're seeing this self-destructive behavior. They are right now, as we speak. Again, this comes from watching Public Freak Out. I realize that I have a skewed view of the world because of this. But they're going to meetings and they are talking to their elected officials, and they are threatening that they're there. The person speaking is there because all of their friends with guns are too mad to talk to them, and they're just waiting for a signal, that kind of thing.
I mean, it would, and I'm going to be a little insensitive here, but I would be a little bit more sympathetic to the people who are poisoning themselves with horse dewormer and making themselves sick because they didn't think COVID was real, if they weren't, like, you know, what Hillary Clinton called the deplorables, if they weren't people who just have a very skewed sense of what the United States is anyway.
Yeah. And one of the things that I saw just recently that I liked a lot was a member of the United States military talking to someone who was like, where are you, military? Why aren't you protecting us? You might have seen it.
I have seen that. Yeah, I saw it this morning, actually. Patton Oswalt retweeted it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, and as a former member of the United States military, as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, if you're talking to me as a member of the U.S. military and asking me where I am, because if I'm not going to do something, you're going to go ahead and get some guns and make changes yourself.
Yeah.
My first thought is, well, great. It looks like I may get deployed there. I don't want to be deployed inside the U.S. There's some benefits to it, but no service members do not, in general, like the idea of having to police U.S. citizens. I could be wrong. Someone might write back and say, no, I dig it. I think it's really cool.
Well,
but in general.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And this person's post essentially was, if you take up arms against U.S. citizens, you're taking up arms against the U.S. military, and you will not win that fight.
Exactly. And it's absolutely true. We don't appreciate. It's funny. People love the troops until the troops aren't. It's like watching people who are really good at roasting people on Twitter, right? Just brutal takedowns, and it's great. And you're watching, you're like, yeah, roast them, get them, until they go after something that you like, and then it's like, what? No, and
leave Brittany alone.
Your feelings get hurt. You know, you're like, but no, not my thing. Not my thing is good. Why are you so bad on me now? That I don't like that. The concept of the military versus, and this is the thing that I keep coming back to, because I know the mindset. The militia folks believe that when it came down to it, the military would be on their side. And the thing is, having at least when I served, which was a while back, there are some people that would be on their side.
Yeah.
And in general, those people are disliked by the rest of the people that are there.
Well, that's good to hear, I suppose.
And I could be 100% wrong about this, but the difference between you and your unit, in my case, it would be in the Air Force, it's a flight. The dynamic between those folks, especially after you've been training together and doing stuff and all that, and your friends back home. If your friends back home wanted you to do something against your flight or your unit or whatever, I don't know what kind of like crazy you would have to be to do it, but it's like,
I'm guessing that sort of crazy exists, but I'm hoping that the percentage of that crazy is very small within the U.S. military.
Yeah, the way I would think about it is this: like, you know how someone breaks up with their girlfriend for a short period of time, and they're complaining about him, and you're like, I might want to commiserate with this person, but I don't want to say anything too bad because they might be back with them.
Yep.
And so you're very cautious about. That's how. If I were an insurgent group, that's how I would think about the U.S. military when talking to my friend who is in the military who's disgruntled. Yeah, when you're sitting around this table with us in my mom's basement and we're talking about how bad the military is, that's great. The minute you're back on base, all of that, you're a different person. I don't know. It's a concern that I have about what these next couple of years are going to be like, because I don't think it's going to get better. I think, and the one other thing that I caution about is that as a member of the white cis male group, right? If you want to be on the right side of history, and it's difficult to conceive of this because people like to think about who they think they are rather than who they are sometimes.
Right.
You have to get right with the idea that, and I think, Ben, you already are. So I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Stephen either. I'm talking about people who don't think about this, because Stephen rightfully has called me out on things that I've said when I've tried to both sides it here on this program. So I know that his mind is in the right place. You have to get used to the fact that you have been living a privileged life all this time. And in order for equality to happen, you are going to be uncomfortable sometimes. There are going to be times when a conversation is happening and you aren't the person that people care about the most in the conversation. You're going to have to be used to walking into a room and not having people be like, "Oh, hi, sir. How's it going? What can I get for you?" All this stuff that our parents are used to, and that, the generation before us just had happened for them. You have to get used to the idea of that's actually a little effed up, and not seek that, and actually be okay with, this isn't even my thing. I'm not, all these decisions that are being made over here, no one cares what I think, and I shouldn't even suggest what should happen.
Right.
I should just be quiet and do whatever I can to help the people that are actually making the decisions, who will not be me. As long as you get in that sort of mindset, I think this will be fine. But what's going to happen is that people that normally, who are all for equality, as long as it's an idea of something that could happen, oh yeah, I'm with you, and 100%, they're going to start selling people out and go running for the thing that makes them feel all warm, safe, and important, which is white supremacy. So that's the concern I have for the next like 2 years or so, is that there will be a splintering of friend groups. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's probably. You don't think that's already happened, though? I mean, I think I think so many people I know are cutting out people in their lives because A, they voted for the previous president, or B, they are, they're an anti-vax person, anti-coronavirus vax.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say once a day, but it's very often I see somebody post on Facebook saying, well, had to cut ties with a certain friend of mine because of XYZ. I saw a 2024 sticker, a campaign sticker for the previous president on a truck. Of course, it's a truck, but in downtown Seattle this morning.
Yeah.
So it's out there. It's coming.
This is the important thing, and this is why I want to reiterate this. It's gonna be a tighter cut, if that makes sense. It's going to be people who are like, well, I do think that this is an important issue, but I don't like the way that they're going about protesting it. It's going to be milquetoast. It's going to be middle of the road people. Right now, the far right extremists that in your family and all that, cutting ties with them is not hard.
Yeah,
it's not a big thing. But if someone is, I'm thinking a lot about like the Medicare for All thing, right? Eventually, there's going to be someone that who is going to not just say, oh, this isn't feasible. Because right now, the thing is, it isn't feasible. There's no way that this can work. There aren't enough votes. It'll never get passed and all that. If we ever get to the point where it is feasible and there will be enough votes and all that, people who are now allied with that idea, because I think this is something you believe in, right? I would say Medicare for all.
Medicare for all, yeah. I'm all for it.
There are going to be people who like the idea of Medicare for all up until the point that it actually becomes a possibility, who will then all of a sudden balk at it and cut ties and move to the center rather than being on the left with that. It may have already happened. I don't know, but I've run into that a couple of times. You see it mostly in election years when it's between, the far left candidate and the center candidate. People run to the center candidate and like the left candidate isn't feasible and all that. Socialism. It not being feasible, the Overton window is at the place right now where that is true.
Yeah.
As soon as it becomes more of a possibility, there's going to be a split. There's going to be a fraction. Because at some point, the folks that are on the far left are going to be like, we don't need centrists anymore. We have enough people now that we can actually push for the agendas that we want. And some of our centrist friends are not going to be on board for it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today, and I was wondering what the chances were in my lifetime. And granted, I only probably got about 40 more good years left on this planet.
Wow. I've got less. If I get 40 more years, I'll be excited or really in pain. I don't know which.
Anyway, so it's not a long time as far as government moves, but I wouldn't be surprised if in my lifetime I saw the United States fracture into multiple nations.
Ooh, boy. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. But, I mean, possibly. The big issue, I guess, is that if it does that, it's going to be tricky.
Because it's not by region. I'll give you an
example. Where I live right now, right, would probably end up wherever Missouri goes rather than Illinois. Because we're right across the river. We have St. Louis merchandise in all of our stores. The people around here think of themselves as St. Louisans, not as Chicago folk. So that's one thing that makes me a little nervous about that. But then the other thing is, you've seen this before, islands of blue and seas of red. That's what.
Yeah, but those islands, though geographically are smaller, by people are bigger. I mean,
right, that's what I'm asking. When it fractures into multiple states, what happens? Are there city states versus rural bands of Mad Max kind of?
I think after a war, lines will be drawn and people will be moving to where
Yeah,
they want to live. Going back to your
I
centrist though, and I think I've said this
yeah
before. We've said this before. Stephen mentioned that we don't have centrists. What our centrists are what Republicans used to be,
yeah. It's a very good point.
which is maddeningly frustrating.
Yeah, and this is something that I mean, one thing that I hear sometimes, especially from my the people of color that I know and talk with a lot, is that older generation, like African American voters, would be more conservative. They would vote more conservatively if there wasn't so much racism
Yeah,
in the Republican Party.
yeah,
And I think about that a lot. I think about how that might be a weird flip that happens as well. That we start getting, the Republican Party starts cutting the white supremacy out for a more conservative bent, of a more multinational conservative, multi-ethnic conservative.
At
Uh,
one point during the end of the previous presidency, and I appreciate that we're avoiding saying his name on the show.
yeah, yeah,
They were talking about how it was going to be the party of him, right? So the Republican Party was going
yeah,
to split, and it was going to
yeah.
be his party. And I was actually kind of all for that because that would mean that would give the Republican bloc less voting power, and Democrats would be able to easily win more elections because you have these two Republican-ish, like the centrists and the far right party fighting against each other.
Right.
Theoretically,
In
I
fact,
felt that would be a good thing, but who knows in practice if that would work.
and let's call it. Let's say this might be what happens. That group, right, goes off. All the um, white supremacy presenting, if we can say, politicians go there, right?
The
That's
ones
a
who
lightning
actually
rod.
admitted it.
Um, and then what used to be the Democratic Party becomes the right party. You see the corporate stuff and all that, but
Yeah.
they're all still, happy and cool and gay rights are good and all that. And then the far left becomes people who really are like unionists and communists and things like that. So
Yeah.
that becomes the new dynamic in the US. I could see that happening. And all of a sudden, you get what happened with the Labour Party in the UK, where it's like, well, the far left has a lot of racist union guys in it, and they're not for equality like we are here on the corporate
Right.
Rainbow Coalition. It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird, and you and I are going to have a hard time navigating it, probably. But we'll be old, so it won't matter as much.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't really care about positions of power or status, social status, so maybe
Yeah,
maybe I'm not like my white brethren in that regard.
being artists is weird, right? I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, and I think you would go with me on this. If there was UBI and we could do whatever we wanted, I think that most likely you and I would live in the same state and we'd do theater stuff,
Yeah.
and that would be it. But people find it more useful to have us do, whatever else we do instead. None of which is great. I mean, I enjoy what I'm doing in as much as I am a messy person who loves drama. So in that way I find it intriguing, but in general, I just want to make, and this is again, we go back to the idea I was about to say, I just want to make people happy. my old adage, if you just want to make people happy, get a pickup truck and help people move every weekend. You'll make tons of people happy. And it's not.
I learned
it's not
that when I had a pickup truck.
Yeah, exactly. I use you as an example, Ben. You bring joy to people when you help them with their menial tasks.
Yep.
And so if you want to draw fun pictures and tell goofy stories and all that just to make people happy, you can do that. But really, there's more to it than just wanting to make people happy, because the way to make people happy is a lot simpler. And I do think about doing it sometimes, but I hate lifting things, so it's tough. I still remember. Shout out to Chris Dietz. When I was moving stuff, or when I was moving house, going to Ballard, you and Chris Dietz and Rick Miller all helped me move at one point in time. And Chris Dietz, I was like, I'll come move things in a second. And Chris just went, he's not going to move anything. Just a resigned, that's not going to happen. And he was right. Now I think I am a person now that would help move. I really do. Especially if it was me that people were helping move. I think I would help out at least a little bit. But once again, shout out to Ben Lawrence, best person in the world, helped me move by cleaning out my entire house and putting it into 2 pods and moving them across the country to me. Ben, thank you again.
If you wanna hear about a person whose attributes are more stellar than that, so there was a day where we were like loading the rest of the house out, like into like to go to Goodwill, or it was like the final push to get the house emptied. And I put a call out on Facebook. I'm like, if you're around and you can help, please help. And Bill Murray, you remember Bill Murray?
Bill Murray, yeah.
Yeah. So Bill Murray actually, he like forwarded that to like a lawyer friend of his who doesn't know you, doesn't know me, but he's like, my friend is going to come help you out. And indeed, this guy showed up, not knowing anybody, and helped carry stuff from the house to these trucks. And I'm like, what? Dude. Yeah.
Have I heard about this before? This seems like the first time I've heard about it.
I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but yeah, that happened. His name is Takao Yamada, and he's a stand-up dude.
Can you get me his information?
I friended him on Facebook. That's the only info I got.
Because I would like to send him a thank you note. An actual handwritten thank you note.
After all these years.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
I will see what I can do.
All right. And in fact, maybe I'll write it on the podcast. Won't that be fun? Listening to me write a letter.
And you'll be able to listen to that next week.
Hey, I think we did a great job. I love this setup. I feel the professionalism of having this up here. I don't know.
It does evoke somebody who has spent money on a microphone.
Exactly. Yes. And the funny thing is that the microphone had already been bought. It's just the screen that's the purchased
I got like
item.
3 of those just hanging out in the office. All right, Paul.
Thanks for talking to me. And hey,
good talking to you.
Until next time, keep it wrong.
Keep it wrong, Paul.